Joining the military right out of high school, then into prison, and changing his mindset to becoming an entrepreneur and running his own successful business. What was the mindset of overcoming for my next guest? You do not want to miss this interview. What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm Mindset Coach Lorraine Lindsay, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Welcome back to another episode of The Mindsetters, where we believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. I am your host, Coach Lorraine Lindsay, a certified peak performance and life coach, also a mindset coach. And before I introduce the guest coming on the show today, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. We love to hear from you, so send us your comments. So without further ado, I am here to introduce my next guest. This is his first time on the show. I'm very happy to have him. A man who has a story of overcoming. He has an incredible journey, and he's going to share that with us today. So without further ado, let me introduce my next guest. His name is Vic Camarillo. Vic, a little bit about Vic. Vic was born in Mexico, but considers Las Vegas his home. You often hear him reminiscing about growing up downtown and how much the city has changed, which is so true, right? Mm-hmm. After his graduation from Valley High School, Vic enlisted in the military, where he served a tour in Iraq. This would be one of the most difficult, formative, and rewarding experiences of his life. Little did he know another life-changing experience was right around the corner. In 2013, Vic would begin a term in prison. It was during this time that he fully realized his interest and aptitude for art. He began painting and soon found himself in a little corner he would refer to as his art studio. Once his time was served, he was back in his home city with not much direction, but took a gamble on starting a tattoo apprenticeship. He's since gone on to study under some of the best black and gray realism tattoo artists in the U.S. and continues to develop his skills to this day. After so many unique chapters of his life, he finally feels like he has found his place in the community he loves, a tattoo artist. Beautiful. I love the bio, by the way.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
Vic, thank you so much
and
for being on the show.
Me. I really appreciate it.
No, first of all, I love locals. And, we went to high school. Both of us went to high school out here. And I love when people have a story, but it's a story of resilience and overcoming. Because when you shared your story and we talked, it's a lot of people get stuck in things and they think that, because I did this or I had this, that I can't find a way. Yep. And even while you were away, you found your passion, your purpose. Yep. So I don't know. Let's start from military.
Okay. Yeah,
so
let's do that.
You graduated from high school.
Yes.
Right. And what made you decide to enlist right away out of high school?
Well, that's just the thing. Like, I knew I had like most kids coming out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have any direction. It's kind of a scary thing coming out of high school and wanting to be successful, not wanting to just be somebody that just like sits back and goes through the motions. I never wanted to be that. So, I grew up playing sports. I was an athlete my whole life. So I was like, you know what, let me do something that's going to be adventurous. I get to travel. And so I took the gamble. I actually was joining the Marines first.
Okay.
And the recruiter he didn't call me, and I was waiting for him to call me back, and he didn't. And so my friend who had just joined the Army, he was like, hey man, come talk to my recruiter. So I went and talked to the recruiter. I took the ASVAB test. I scored really high, actually. And I signed on to the Army to be an underwater diver demolition specialist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like a rare job or whatever. But I got to thinking about it, and like 2 weeks later, I'm like, man, I don't want to dive underwater. I don't know nothing about that, So I called the recruiter back, and I told him, hey, put me in the infantry. That's what I want to do. I want to be on the front line type of guy.
Now, when you're saying this, 18 years old, I'm assuming, right? 18, 19 years old. Do you really have a grasp on what that potentially could mean?
Yes, I did, especially being that, 9/11 had just happened like 2 years prior. We had just gone into Afghanistan. So I knew that we were like in a time of war. I didn't realize how serious it was until I got to boot camp. And our drill sergeant was like, he's like, you guys don't, whenever we'd mess up, he'd be like, you guys don't understand. You guys are all going to war. Like, You are. You just are.
That's
And
so
yeah,
scary.
and we were just kind of like, whatever. And he would say like, some of you guys aren't coming back, and he was right. Like we all went, and some people didn't come back.
Now when I read your bio and you said these words, let me pull it up here real quick. You said that the experience was the most difficult, formative, and rewarding experience in your life. Why would you use all of those kind of combined?
Well, the first thing that the Army did teach me was it teaches you that you can do things that you never knew or thought you could do.
Okay.
Like just from boot camp, it started making you do like these crazy road marches or sleeping out in the cold, wet, just like misery. Like it was miserable. So you automatically start to learn that you can do things that you never thought you. That's one of people's first like biggest obstacles is they think they can't do something.
Right.
And it's not true. There's an old saying that goes like, people say, oh, it's easier said than done. But I came to find out that it's actually easier done than said.
Ooh.
Like saying it sounds so intimidating. It sounds so hard. But once you just do it and just start doing it, next thing you know, it's like, oh, I'm doing this. I can do this.
That is so good. Yeah. It's easier done actually than it is said.
Yeah. Because the biggest obstacle is just doing it. Just saying I'm going to do it and committing to it.
And putting it into motion.
Yeah, and putting it into motion. Once you do that, I mean, as long as you're like serious about it and you're motivated, it'll all fall into place, you know. Even if it doesn't happen overnight, you know, it's going to happen.
So you went overseas.
Yeah.
You were in Iraq.
In Iraq, yeah.
And how long did you do your term for?
I did a 1-year tour just south of Baghdad, little area south of Baghdad that was kind of like a hot area, you know.
So what was that like for you? I mean, how old were you, first of all?
So when I joined, I was 18, but when I got deployed the second year of our Iraq occupation, I guess you could say. So I got there, I had just turned 21, as a matter of fact. I turned 21 in October, and then we were shipped out in December. So I only had about 2 months to do my whole 21-year-old party thing, you know? But by the time I got to Iraq, I was already a sergeant. I was in charge of like 5 or 6, like 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. And I'm only 21 myself.
Wow.
It was crazy. So yeah, I was 21 when I got there.
And did that experience shift you? Because I mean, here you are in this disciplined world. You're going to war. You're front infantry, right? Mm-hmm. What was the shift for you? Because when you came back, at some point you got into some trouble.
Well, I think to kind of go with that, you kind of have to like, it was the war that kind of changed me in so many different ways.
Okay.
To me, I feel like the war itself taught me so much about just life in general. Like, I'll be honest with you, like going into like the Army and growing up, I was always a very religious person. And then like when I went to war, like I saw things and things just started not making sense to me, you know? And it really did make me question my religion and religion in general, because obviously there's a lot of religion going on that side of the world, you know? And a lot of things didn't really make sense to me. And so I did kind of lose my religion at that time. And I became more of a, like, I need the proof. I need to see things for myself to understand why things happen. Or you know, sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to it, you know?
Right.
So I guess coming back from the war, you know, I lost friends in front of me during the war, and I saw people get killed. I saw some bad things, and I did things myself, you know, that involved war stuff, you know. But so luckily for me, and I do have to thank, I think, Las Vegas for this a lot, growing up here. I came back, and, you know, people say, oh, do you have PTSD, or will you come back all messed up? Everybody comes back different, but I think I came back different for a more positive reason.
Okay.
Rather than, you know, luckily for growing up in Vegas, I feel like I was always surrounded by chaos and always like something going on. So I wasn't from like one of these kids from like some little country town where like nothing's going on. I didn't come home and be like a recluse. I didn't like.
It's interesting you say that, because I get, you know, that's true, because I grew up in chaos myself, and although to the outside world, even for me at times, it was something that was such a hindrance, and it was such a setback in my life. It was also what gave me strength to be the person that I am today.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you say that, because you're like, I lived in a world of chaos, obviously very different than being in a war, but it somehow was what kind of gave you the strength to come back and maybe push through a little bit easier than some others, would you say?
No, and for sure. And I think what happened is instead of like coming home and being cooped up in a house all day and having time to like think about what happened in Iraq and what was going on, I didn't. Like I got really bad FOMO with life. Like
Okay.
I saw people just like 1 second I'm talking to them, the next second they're dead in front of me, and it made me realize how short life is.
Mm.
And so it made me just want to do everything. Like I wanted to always be out. At that time I was young, so I wanted to be out partying. I don't want to miss anything. I didn't want to, if somebody's taking a trip, I wanted to do that. I didn't want to miss anything. So I do feel like it had a positive effect on me than like a lot more other
Right.
people. But also I do think that it also made me crave that adrenaline rush that
Mm.
I got home and I didn't have. Like there's no adrenaline like war. Like there's no drug, there's no nothing that can compare to just like fight or flight. You know what I mean?
Being like, and
yeah,
because it
yeah,
keeps you so present.
yeah.
I've not been in war, but I was an EMT for 10 years.
Okay, yeah,
And so when you're out there in the street and you have life or death right in front of you and
Yeah.
you're responsible for, saving people's lives, so to
Yeah.
speak, it's fight or flight.
exactly.
You're literally right there in that moment with that individual as they're potentially taking their last breath.
Exactly.
And you're right. After I left I did it again for 10 years. When I left that world, everything felt different, you
Yeah.
know? And there is that like, it's like instant presence,
Yeah.
right? You're just, you're moment to moment. You
and
don't have time to think about yesterday or what's
Yeah.
going on tomorrow. You
And-
have to be present.
Exactly. And it helps you realize that like you only get one shot at this. And especially somebody who like me who lost kind of their religion coming back. In my head it's like I don't know what happens after we're gone. But like if there's nothing, then I have to do something while I'm here. I have to take full advantage of it. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I wanted to do everything. So yeah, I mean, I think on the negative side of things, it did make me more liable to engage in risky behavior, which I
So is that
definitely
what
did.
led you down the pathway?
Well, to be honest with you, what led me down the pathway was just being a dumb young kid because I took all my. It's funny how much money I make now compared to like a whole year in Iraq. I saved up $20,000.
Okay.
That's how much.
Wow.
That's it. Like
Yeah.
20,000. And to me at the time, that was money. I
Right.
thought I was
right.
doing it. So I had money, well, what I thought was money and good credit. I went out and bought like a really expensive car while I
Mhm.
was still in the army. As soon as I got back, the payments on it were like $800. And then like shortly after I got out of the army, all of a sudden I'm working at Star Nursery making like a minimum wage, $8 an hour job.
Wow.
And I couldn't afford the car payment. I was living with my best friend at the time who was doing his thing, you know? And one day, I'm struggling to make these car payments, working 8 hours, labor. And one day he's like, hey, man, remember the dude we hung out with the other day? He's like, I need you to take this to him at the gas station, and he's going to give you $100, bring back 50 for me, and you keep 50, and we're good. So I'm like, all right, I go to the gas station anyways. I went to the gas station. I made $50 in like
2 seconds.
2 seconds. And it was the fastest money I ever made in my life. And it was like that was like almost a whole day's work at Star Nursery. So I was like,
Right.
man, what am I doing? So, I took an advance on my credit card, took some cash out and started doing my thing.
You know what's interesting that when people get in that life, and I grew up around people that were on, doing their thing in the
Mhm.
streets or whatever. What are the street pharmacists we used to
Yeah.
call them? But there's a business mindset with that, right? But it's just on the wrong side of business.
Yeah.
And that was always something that as I got older and kind of really had an understanding, because when you live in the neighborhood and that's what's going on, it's just a norm.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a bad thing per se. I saw what it did, like drugs, for example, would do to people.
Mhm.
But it just seemed normal that people would hustle on the block. That's just how I grew up. But to think, wow, a lot of these guys end up either dying or going to prison, but they had these sharp minds to get the ones that were really doing well. They were very savvy businessmen, but they were just using their intellect on the wrong side of the coin.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but obviously that was because it's interesting to me. Sorry, I'm all over the place. It's interesting to me for this. is here you are, you get out of the military. You had this unbelievable experience that really made you really kind of grow up very fast, right? You were in charge of people's lives. You were exposed to things that you had never thought you'd ever see probably. And then you had this unbelievable perspective. And then to come out being a young man with that such perspective, but then shifting a little bit, for material things.
Well, I think too, it just also comes down to time. Like I told, like I'll always keep going back to this, is like I realized time was limited for me here. And to this day, one side effect that I do have from the war is I always feel like the Grim Reaper is like right on my back shoulder. I always feel like it's coming. So it was a time thing. So it was just, for me, it was easy to see that I can work 8 hours doing this for minimal money, or I can free up time to do what I want in life and make more money without having to put all that labor. And it was kind of like a no-brainer. But also, there's also, you if you're any kind of smart, you know that there's repercussions. There's consequences to these things.
Right. So there's your adrenaline.
There's the adrenaline.
Right.
And it did give me, the bigger I got doing it, obviously I started off small, but I got pretty big. Yeah, you start doing big things that have serious consequences. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have that adrenaline rush there,
Mm-hmm.
But, even though I've been, one thing that it taught me, and I guess I'll jump ahead to the prison thing, is, when I finally got in trouble for it, prior to that, I had actually gone through
Well, did you ever think that you were going to get in trouble, or did you kind of think you were invincible?
No, I kind of did. One thing about me is I've always been really good at learning from other people's mistakes and seeing it. And so I saw a lot of people around me were falling and getting in trouble. So I kind of knew it was around the corner. I just wasn't too scared of it. I just kind of was like, all right, if it happens, then I'll just have to deal with it then.
Right.
But I was just kind of you kind of get in too deep in what you're doing, there's big money involved. And so
you finally get caught.
Yeah.
And then you go away.
And I go away.
Uh-huh.
Well, and here's the thing too, and this is also very important, and it wasn't a significant thing, but maybe only 2 years prior to that, I had gone through a really bad breakup.
Okay.
And I had taken a big loss in what I was doing. So I was down both with financially, and I was heartbroken. And I thought I was never going to get out of this hole. I was just depressed. I was sad, and this girl really screwed me up, you know? But then out of nowhere, from one day to another, things turned, and I started doing good again and making money again. And that taught me that no matter how down you are, or whenever you feel like you're not going to be able to get yourself out of this hole, life has a funny way of from one day to the next, if as long as you keep pushing forward, you get out of that. That's
so true.
So luckily for me, when I did get in trouble, I got in trouble for a nonviolent marijuana crime. So I only, altogether between when I got caught in Maryland, between the county time, time I did in Maryland, and then prison, I did around 2 years, which wasn't much. It's not really big time, and it was easy time. I was in a federal low, but the one thing.
But what was so you're there? I mean, you're talking about you went away to fight a war, and now you've gone away. For a whole different reason.
Yeah.
And while you're there, what's the mindset? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Like you said, for some, it's okay, it's 2 years, not a big deal. I'm making fast money. I'll just clean up my act, and I'll go out there and I'll do it again.
Well, I like I said, I learned from other people's mistakes, but I also learned from my mistakes, and I knew that okay, I'm in trouble. I did it. That's my strike. I can't mess up anymore. So going into that, I knew I had to do something different. I knew that I couldn't get out and do the same thing and I would see guys in there that would just be in the cycle of getting caught for the same thing over and over. And they're doing real time. They're doing 10, 15 years, And I'm like, man, I can either choose to keep going down this route, or I gotta switch it up. I gotta do something different.
So what was it? What compelled you to want to make it different? You did say that you had an experience. You learned your craft.
Yeah.
Did you always know you were an artist?
No, I actually was never an artist. I grew up not doing art at all. I played sports. I love playing sports.
So you were never in art class or drawing or anything?
I always loved art, as far as I loved looking at it, and I always would think man, that's so cool that people can do that and make money off it. Because I was getting tattoos before prison, and I would, even as I was getting tattooed, I'd think, man, this guy, he's making money off this, and like he's making good cash, like on the spot that day, making cash and going home with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought, I'm like, man, that's incredible. I wish I could do that, you know? I didn't know that that would be my destiny in the future. I just, one thing, I am insecure like anybody else. I'm insecure about different things. And one thing that scares me the most is being looked at as a failure.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe it's an ego thing.
Mm.
Maybe it's from sports. Maybe like I just don't like to lose, or I
So
don't
when
like
you
to
went away, then okay, here you were like again
hmm
in the military, and you know, people really respect that. They're
hmm
you know, it's different than when it was the Vietnam War when
Yeah.
people were horrible to our vets.
Yeah.
But now we really honor people
hmm
who take, you know, who are so brave in that, and to have that, and then to come out and then end up there. Was there anything emotionally or psychologically? It was like, how did I get here?
No, because I think about things very literal.
Okay.
But you have to understand too that before I went to prison, I was winning. I was making a lot of money.
Mm,
I was around a lot of women. You know, to me, those were the things that were like
equated to winning.
to winning. You know,
hmm
I lived in a high rise with one of the best views in Vegas. You know,
Right.
and so I was doing good. I was winning. So then when I fell, my mindset was like, dang, like I don't. Now I'm looked at like, damn, what happened to him? You know.
Mm,
So I knew I had to do something because I don't want people like whispering behind back, like, oh, do you see, you know, like he fell off or whatever.
right.
Like I didn't want that. So I knew I had to do something. I just didn't know what. Luckily for me, in prison, I had a lot of time. If I wasn't working out with my boys or whatever, then it was like art. I was just doing art because it was just something to do. And I had a couple guys like around me that were good at art. And they
Okay.
started teaching me, and I got a knack for it pretty quick. You know, I didn't know the basics, and I
It's
didn't.
so crazy how, like, and I don't mean to
Mhm.
interrupt you, but it's crazy how there's so much. A lot of us out there are kind of beaten to a drum in a repetitive life
Mhm.
of the same mundane, not realizing that there's these untapped parts of us that really need to like literally come alive, like these
Mhm.
little seeds that just need the right environment to grow.
Well, and that's the thing. I think like there's a lot of people that are lost and they don't know what they want to do with their lives or what they're good at. There's so many things that everybody I know has something that they're incredible at that can make a lot of money at. They
Right.
just don't know it. But the problem is, I feel like we've gotten in a society where we're scared to try new things or step outside of our
Yeah,
comfort zone.
absolutely.
And that's one thing that I've never been scared to do. I've always been like, you know, I'm gonna just jump into this. That's part of that like risk taking and the FOMO that I got from the army, you know.
hmm
And so, like, I was always scared to miss out on something. So I'm always like the person that's like, oh, you want to go on a trip tomorrow? Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
do this. Let me,
Book the ticket,
yeah, let's
right?
do it. You know. So you
So
can't be scared to get out of the comfort zone. You just can't.
you can't, and a lot of people are. So for you, what was it then? Was it the fact that you went away that pushed you out to this next comfort, like, to get out of your comfort zone, or this, or to listen? You were gone for 2 years. You get this knack for
hmm
art,
Yeah.
being an artist, and to jump from that into, you know, being a full blown entrepreneur and having and doing tattoos. Like,
Yeah.
how did it go from art and drawing and learning and whatever to actually putting ink and
Well,
designing? That's true
well, a
artistry.
lot of it is luck. A lot of it is timing. A lot of it is you know, having that motivation to do it. To be honest with you, I started in there doing painting. I did painting, oil paintings, and I got really good at my oil paintings. Like it was crazy because we had a little like room where people would paint,
hmm
and people would always like that didn't paint or do art. They would come in and look at all the stuff hanging on the walls and like check it out. And then like halfway through my time, people started coming in looking at my stuff, and I don't know what it was, but I just got a knack for it, and I started progressing really quickly. So what happened was when I got out, I wasn't trying to be a tattoo artist. I was trying to like be a painter or like sell paintings and stuff.
Okay.
But that's a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, when I got back from the war, um, I was getting tattooed. I wanted to do a memorial piece for my friends that I lost in the war. So I sought out the best tattoo artist in Vegas for Black and Gray at the time, who in my opinion was the best tattoo artist at the time, was Robert Foe, who's world-renowned tattoo artist, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting work done from him before any of this happened. I was already getting work from him. I built up a rapport with him. And so when I got out, I wasn't even going to like be a tattoo artist. But one of my friends, she was like, just go ask him for an apprenticeship. Just go, like, who cares?
So when you got
I
out,
wasn't
you
gonna
had
do
it
it.
in your head you want to do tattoos.
No, I had in my head I was going to paint. I didn't know I was going to do tattoos.
So then your friend tells you,
she's like, you should just go ask Robert Foe for an apprenticeship. She's like, if you can paint, you might be able to do it on skin, and that's where the money's at. And I'm like, and that's where
crazy.
I was unlike
Yeah.
myself, because I was like, no, he's not going to take me, you know, like he's world renowned. He only messes with like the best artists. She's like, well, you're not going to know unless you go ask. So I went in and I asked, and I hadn't seen him in a couple years, and he looked at my paintings and he was like, yeah, let's do it.
wow.
And I was like,
It goes back. I'm going to circle back to what you said earlier in the beginning of the show. Is you said it's easier said than done,
yes,
but you had to do it first, right?
You got it.
And you that's right there, because you didn't even have it in you to know that tattooing was what it was going to ultimately
Exactly.
be.
Exactly.
I remember a story a long time ago for me. I went to school to be a paramedic, and then I went to nursing school, and I thought that my gift, my purpose to life was to help and heal people. And I took that quite literally, like I was supposed to do it through medicine.
Through nurse.
And I pursued and pursued. And honestly, if I wasn't a single mom and didn't have financial stressors, I really would have loved to have gone to medical school, because I really thought that that was my purpose in life. And there was these crazy set of circumstances that pushed me out of nursing school, and I could not believe it. It was so out of my control what happened. And I remember, you talk about religion and faith, and I remember having like breaking down and just feeling like, if this is what I feel like my purpose is, how come it's not working out?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it not happening for me? And I had this lady at my job that I was in, and she was always kind of preaching to people. She kind of like had a teacher quality to her. And I joked with her and I said to her, you know, Judith, you should be a teacher. And she laughed and she said, let me explain something to you. When you have a gift, it doesn't mean you have to do it quite literally.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, I was a teacher and I hated it.
Mm.
But now I get to teach in the way that suits me and makes me feel
Exactly.
fulfilled. And that was that pivotal, like, aha moment for me, where I was like, maybe it isn't that I'm supposed to heal people and help people with medicine.
Yep.
Maybe I need to help people and heal people with my own heart, which is what landed me here on this podcast.
You're exactly
So,
right. Yeah.
long-winded story, but it's kind of along the lines of what you're saying. The artistry was in you,
Yeah.
but the path that it needed to take, you didn't necessarily know, but you were doing,
Yes.
and it led you to it.
And one thing too, that by now, what my experience had taught me is that, like, you can always bounce back. Even when you're down, you can always bounce back. So I had already taken 2 losses in my life by this point. So I knew that if I just keep pushing, I can get out of it.
Mm.
And so, actually, to be honest with you, this may be part of the luck or part of, you know, sometimes to win, you have to lose. And I had already
Absolutely.
learned this numerous times. What I wanted to do just to start making money when I got out, I had bartended in the past. I thought I was going to come out and be a bartender.
Mm-hmm.
I went to this is like a couple days out of prison. I went down, I got hired at a bar, but I had to get a sheriff's card. I went down to Metro to get my sheriff's card, and they denied me. And I was devastated, because I was like, what am I going to do now? I don't, how am I going to make money?
Right.
I thought bartending was going to be how I make good money and be successful. So I was devastated after that day. And then that's when my friend was like, well, you do art good. Why don't you go talk to Robert and see if he'll. And it was because I lost with that bartending thing. That was the best.
The loss would end up becoming the win.
That was the best thing that ever happened to me is them not giving me that sheriff's card, because I would have became a bartender, and maybe I would have lived a great life, but I would have never known that I could have been such a good tattoo artist.
I love that. That's so profound, because I think a lot of people, when they have those losses, they stay stuck in the losses, not saying, okay, the loss is there. Why? Like, same thing with me with nursing school. It's like, why did I lose here? Why? I was good. I was an A student. I was on top of my game. Why was there a loss here? And why did these circumstances happen?
Yes.
But in hindsight, when I look back, it's like, okay. And that's the old thing I always say to, and I've learned this in my life, is to allow yourself to be a student to your life. So that way you can learn the lessons, right?
Exactly.
So here you are, you're doing this apprenticeship with Robert. You didn't even think he was going to take
Yeah,
you in.
yeah.
I mean, this is a guy you're admiring and
Yeah.
looking up to.
He's world renowned in the industry.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he's like, no, I'm taking you in. So
Mhm.
what was that journey like before we got to Vic's
It
tattoos?
was the hardest thing that I've ever done.
Okay.
More than the Army, more than anything. Like him and his brother, who is also an incredible artist, Andy Foe, they're, I kind of blame it a little bit on like their culture. They come from the Asian culture that's very like meticulous, very structured, very hardworking. They were no nonsense. Like they put me through the ringer. Like I have videos that I post every now and then. I mean, I was literally, a few years before I was living in a high rise with tons of money and girls and all this stuff. Now I'm cleaning toilets in the shop.
Wow.
I was working 12 to 15-hour days. I had to be the first guy in and the last one to leave.
Why didn't you quit?
That's the thing. It's because if I had started this journey when I was 21, I would have never made it.
Mm.
But I knew from my past experiences that as long as you put a foot forward every day, it doesn't matter how big that step is. As long as you're just moving forward, you're eventually going to get there. And sometimes you get there before you think you're going to get there.
That is so true.
You really do.
Yes.
Like it seems so far away, but either way, the time's going to pass whether you do it or not. So you might
It's
as well.
so ironic you say that because I literally last night hit 1,000 subscribers, and I know that for some people is a very small feat.
Mhm.
But me setting that as a goal is what helped me to continue doing this. It wasn't for the vanity or whatever. It literally was one step in front of the other. If I can just get to the next 5 and the next 10.
And that's the thing is how long it took you, however long it took you to get to your 1,000 subscribers. The thought right now is like 20,000 subscribers. Oh, that seems like a world away.
Right.
But it's really not.
And again, I love what you said. It's easier said than done. No, but it's about doing.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that.
Yeah. It's easier done than said because the hard part is like telling yourself that it's achievable because so many people are like, I can't do that.
Right.
I'm down and I'm out. And all you got to do is just keep pushing. Even when an opportunity closes and you're devastated and you think that was it, you can still like pivot and keep moving forward. You really can.
I love that. I love that positivity. It's so funny because if someone saw, like someone saw you and you're this tattoo guy and whatever, this is why I love just having conversations with people because some people would be like, nah, he's probably hardcore and whatever.
Yeah.
But yet you have this perspective and this, I know you mentioned you had lost your religion, but you still have this incredible amount of spirituality.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this then. Okay, you do your apprenticeship there. I took some pictures of your some of your art, your beautiful art, Vic's tattoos. So we go from the apprenticeship. Let's go to the next slide where we can actually see these unbelievable. I mean, and I didn't even know which ones to like pick from because there's so much beautiful work from someone who didn't even know they were an artist.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So how did you go from the apprenticeship to the mindset of saying, I want my own, not working in a tattoo shop, but ultimately getting your own shop and kind of running your own business?
Well, that's funny because that's also the way it happened was also a story of losses. So during my apprenticeship, with the hardest time of my life, like I'm working, I'm overworked, I'm stressed. Oh, keep in mind, I'm doing all this for free for 2.5 years.
Wow.
I'm not getting paid. So luckily I had expensive things that I had accumulated in my past that I was able to sell off or make money here and there.
That's dedication.
Yeah. I was broke. I had nothing. I was mopping floors and cleaning toilets. And I would post it on Instagram because people knew me as
the high-rise guy.
Vic.
Yeah.
And I know people were like, damn, what happened to him? But I knew that there was a goal to this. Right in the middle of that apprenticeship, my mom dies.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so it's like, dang. So it's like, now it's even worse, Long story short, with that shop and my apprenticeship, I started finally making some money and all that. For whatever reason, we didn't see eye to eye with. I didn't see eye to eye with what I think is his brother and their accountant. They were trying to go in one direction, and they didn't think that I was trying to go in that direction with them financially. So I think they kind of they found a way to get me out of there. Robert loved me, but he had moved to Hawaii. And he kind of wasn't around at the time. So, I mean, I'm sure there's different perspectives on why I left. But I ended up leaving. And guess what? Skin Design, that tattoo shop with Robert, is known in the industry as like one of the epitomes, like like shops. Like
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I was already at the highest level. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was an apprentice. My work was still kind of shaky. When they ran me from that shop, I was like, man, now what? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I put on a post and I thanked them. I said, thank you for everything you guys gave me. And right off the bat, I had different shops like, hey, you can come work here if you want. Like they saw my work and they're like, come over here, come over here. And so where I was like at the time feeling insecure about my work and what I was going to do, there was other people. We're our own biggest critics, right?
Right, of
There was
course.
other people that believed in my work and they're like, well, come work here. Granted, they weren't as big of shops or anything, but I learned from taking my chance with Robert. I said, you know what? I'm going to apply to this other shop in Vegas. That's another premier shop that world renowned
Mm-hmm.
artists and all that. I was like, let me, as an apprentice, you know, these guys are killers. I was like, let me just try to apply with
I
them.
love that you're like, just go for it. You just
Yeah.
assert yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did it and they hired me. I'm like, I couldn't believe I made it at this shop too, you know.
Mhm.
And, you know, they hired me. And so here we go again. Like I was devastated, but I knew that I had to like keep it pushing because
Right.
it's not just the positive mindset. It's definitely an ego thing too. I was
Mhm.
scared of being a failure. I was insecure of being a failure.
And that
I
was your
looked at it-
compelling why. I think for a lot of people out there who have these fears, you can never necessarily get rid of the fear, but it's about understanding that it's there and having it work for you because it can serve you if you allow it to. It can serve you in a positive way, but it also can be what creates sabotage in your life.
Mhm.
And if for you, it seems like it was such a compelling thing for you not to fail,
Mhm.
but you used it in a positive light towards the end. So there's so much more to the story,
Okay.
but we're cutting on time.
Okay.
But I want to. How did you go from this journey into finally having your own tattoo shop?
Well, I don't have my own tattoo shop. I work independently for myself
Oh,
at a shop.
independent, okay.
But I am my own boss. And long story short, at the second shop that I was at, financial reasons kind of it was more so like they weren't giving me enough time off, and I wanted to like living
Mhm.
life. I like traveling. We didn't see eye to eye on that. So once again, they gave me the boot because I didn't want to play that game. It was kind of corporate, you know. And I just did it. Like
decided to become
I just decided to
independent.
become independent. Luckily for me, by now I had my skills have gotten honed in, and I had built up a more clientele base. I was scared. I was scared to death, but I'm doing it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, okay, for people out there listening, this is for me an incredible story of overcoming, and I love it. Again, putting that one foot in you just always asserted yourself,
Yes.
regardless of the fear. So, what would you tell people out there who is struggling with taking that next step? What would be your advice for them?
I would say, to be honest with you, and this is something that I fight back against a lot, and it may sound a little harsh, but the whole victim mentality. Don't fall into that victim mentality. I feel like we live in a society right now, and they want to push that victim mentality that because your starting line wasn't at the same starting line as somebody else. Somebody else started with more opportunities than you. That means nothing.
Right.
That
That's
doesn't
so true.
that means nothing. Don't focus on why you didn't get to start with the same opportunities as anybody else, or why you still don't have the same opportunities as anybody else. If you have an iPhone, you have the ability to research and figure out anything you need to learn to be successful in life. Try everything, do everything. Don't think of yourself as a victim. Just think of how great the ending story is going to be when you are successful. Now you can say that you had more hurdles than the next guy rather than the guy that started in front of you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because your testimony, your story is your power if you allow it to be.
Exactly.
So, Vic, I thank you so much for coming on the
Thank
show.
you so
I
much
hope
for having me.
I told you we're going to do a panel where there's all men.
Yeah.
So I hope you'll be
do it.
available to do
I'm
that.
available anytime you want. I'll be here.
Okay, I love it. And like I said, I got to come get my ink done.
Let's do it.
Thank you for your service to this country
Thank
as
you
well.
so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So, if you guys want to get a hold of Vic, if you want some ink done, I don't know what the wait list is like. Vic Tattoos, again, his handle. Can we put his picture up with his website or whatever?
Yeah, you can go to my website www.vegasvictattoos.com
and follow you on Instagram, see his beautiful work. Again, thank you so much for watching the show, Vic. Thank you for coming and gracing us with your presence. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And until next time, ciao.